Okay, so good morning to everybody. If anybody, those of you who were paying attention to the news last night, realize there's been a major situation going on between Russia and Ukraine. I was watching it and I did not really want to comment on it until there was more uh, light shed on the subject. Um, so here's the breakdown. The breakdown is, first of all, in 2003, Russia and Ukraine signed a treaty. It's called the Sea of Azov Treaty, I guess. It's a bilateral treaty. The UN, NATO, what nobody has anything to do with it except for Ukraine and Russia. And because in the Sea of Azov, both Russia and Ukraine have ports there. And so it is necessary for Russia and Ukraine to have a treaty so that they both have access to the Sea of Azov. Now, of course, folks, in 2014, Russia took back Crimea from Ukraine by force. Unprovoked now. It was unprovoked. And now here we are today, revisiting nearly a crisis, something of crisis proportions here. And it's happening just before the summit in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Now, so I've named this particular video 6 Days to Midnight. Why? Do I think that something is coming in 6 days? Possibly, but I do not know. I cannot predict future events any more than anybody else can. But I'm naming this 6 Days to Midnight, and tomorrow I will probably do 5 days to midnight. And so what I want to do is I want to start with some scripture first as to the reason why I'm naming this video 6 Days to Midnight. All right, let me go to screen share here and then go straight to scripture. Okay, Haggai 2. Once again, how often have I read from this particular chapter? In the 7th month, on the 20th, on the 21st day of the month. What day is that? That day is Hoshana Rabbah. The word of Jehovah came to the prophet Haggai. What happened this year on Hoshana Rabbah, the 21st day of the month, on the 21st day of the 7th month on the Hebrew calendar? A cloudy, smoky mist came around the Temple Mount for 20 minutes. And so the question arises, did Jehovah, our Father in heaven, just come down to Jerusalem, to his holy place? Did he? And if he did, is he going to wait around for years and years before something happens? Or is he going to start making things happen? So, and this is when he reveals himself to Haggai the prophet and told him to speak to Zerubbabel, the governor of Yehuda, and to not Joshua, Yehoshua, the high priest. So Haggai, Zerubbabel, and Yehoshua, the high priest, they are a parallel or pattern of what is to come. So in Haggai 2, dates are very, very important. All right. This date is important because that is the date that the smoky mist was seen around the Temple Mount on the 21st day of the 7th month on the Hebrew calendar, September 30th on the Roman calendar. Once again, dates. Verse 18, consider now from this day and upward, from the 24th day of the 9th month, even the day that the foundation of Jehovah's temple was laid. Set it, place it, mark your calendar is what he's saying. Why? And what is the 24th day of the 9th month? It is the first day of Hanukkah. And what's so special about this day? He says, from this day, from that day, I will bless you. I want to bring this back to black again, if I can, because apparently it's a little harder to read for some people in the blue. And again, the word of Jehovah came to Haggai in the 24th day of the month. Now, it is safe to assume that it was on the 24th day of the 9th month. But we know that if the 24th day of the 9th month, if that is the day that the great blessing will come upon Israel, what is that great blessing? To raise up Jerusalem, to bring back all of Israel on that same day. That is the day when the heavens will be shaken and the thrones of the kingdoms of the heathen will be overthrown. Same time, 24th day of the 9th month. That day is 6 days away. At least this year it is. So this is the reason why I've named this video 6 days to midnight. All right, so let's have a look at this little video here. What started it all? And I apologize for using CNN, but this was the easiest one I could get to, and the video kind of speaks for itself. All right, so I'll go ahead and play it, and you will see what started this whole thing. Now, remember, back in 2014, Russia took this Crimea by force from Ukraine without provocation. And I'm not sitting here defending Ukraine. No, this is just an observation, an independent observation. And so, yesterday, what we have here is a tugboat and 2 or 3 other ships going through the Kerch Strait just as they normally would. But the Russians say it was not as they normally would. So it's basically one side versus the other who's telling the truth. And the Russians say that they have to, any ships that come through the Kerch Strait have to get permission by Russia first. Well, when Ukraine had Crimea, it was not so. So as you see, the Russia's narrative is a skewed, a flawed narrative in this case. Now, people can sit here and say, oh, but Russia owned Crimea before, what is his name? Soviet Union, and many of the leaders of the Soviet Union were actually Ukrainian, including Brezhnev and the guy before, Khrushchev. Khrushchev was the one during his tenure in the Soviet Union transferred Crimea to Ukraine. However, Russia did not have to go and take Crimea by force. They could have, surely they could have figured out another way. But see, once you start doing that, it's a slippery slope. What happens is then you start thinking that you can take this and that and this and that. Pretty soon, a great big war breaks out. So now what we have here is we have the breaking of the treaty, the Sea of Azov treaty, and Ukraine has a lot of ports up in here, and now they're blockaded. Now, by international law, a blockade is an act of war, which is why you have Ukraine right now, sometime today, later today, they're going to have a vote in Parliament for a declaration of war and for martial law. Martial law in order to conscript soldiers. Now, the Russian side claims that Ukraine is deliberately doing this because President Poroshenko is unpopular and is going to lose the election in March. Well, that may be so. But on the flip side, Vladimir Putin, his popularity has gone down significantly in Russia as well. And as I pointed out several videos ago, the way Russia remedies that problem is they go and take property. And then the Russian people come back behind Putin and yell, yay, yay, yay. That just like they did when Russia took Crimea, the same thing occurred. It is a dangerous game. It is wrong. This kind of thing is what starts world wars. In fact, World War I was started over something far less than what's going on right now. So let's go ahead and play the video from CNN.
Coming into direct conflict in this strategic area, the Sea of Azov, the Black Sea, and the Kerch Strait. Now, the video in question was released by the Ukrainian authorities. It seems to have been filmed from a Russian ship. And it shows that vessel, purportedly that vessel, approaching what we think is a Ukrainian tugboat during this tense confrontation on Sunday between two Ukrainian Navy gunboats and this tugboat and Russian Navy and Coast Guard ships. And boom, the Russian vessel appears to ram that Ukrainian tugboat. The Ukrainians say the Russians have captured its 3 boats and that 6 of their sailors were injured. The Russians say that 3 sailors were injured and that they've provided them treatment. And of course, there is completely conflicting narratives from Moscow and Kiev about what exactly happened here. The Ukrainians saying they were trying to travel into the Sea of Azov to one of their ports. The Russians saying that the Ukrainian vessels were acting in a dangerous manner and that the Russians were simply defending themselves.
So there you have it.
The UAE government.
What's going on here? I gotta stop.
The UAE government has
all right. So what appears to be going on is, like I said, the same thing that happened in 2014. And we, once again, I will go here. There's another video. You can see it there. And then there's this. So, Zero Hedge reports Ukraine to impose martial law after Russia fires at Ukrainian ship, seizes 3 vessels off of Crimea. And so Nikki Haley sends a tweet out saying an emergency security meeting has been called for tomorrow, which is now today at 11 o'clock a.m. So folks might want to keep your eye check back on the news at about 12 o'clock noon and check and see what the Security Council meeting has come up with. And Nolan Peterson says this is the most dangerous moment I've seen in Ukraine in years. Tonight, a war that many people in America could only imagine thanks to Hollywood movies teeters on a razor's thin edge of becoming real. Tonight in Ukraine, we go to sleep not knowing what tomorrow will bring. A whole bunch of people have their own ideas about what's going on. So I believe the EU is claiming they're calling for restraint and de-escalation. So is NATO. Anyway, now this bridge, the Kerch Bridge, was something, I believe, if I remember correctly, many czars have tried to build this bridge and have done so unsuccessfully. And for the first time, the Russians have built this bridge over an occupied piece of property that technically does not belong to them at this current point, as the way they've received it is illegal by international law. Of course, what nation actually recognizes international law? Good question, isn't it? So, what has this to do with the time of the end? Well, it says, I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen, and I will overthrow the chariots and those that ride in them, and the birds. That's right, original Hebrew is birds, and their riders shall come down, every one by the sword of his brother. So what we see here is a great world war is going to start on that day. What day? Apparently the 24th day of the 9th month, the first day of Hanukkah, the day that the foundation of the temple was laid. Now, Genesis 49. I want to go ahead. I'll just go ahead and read this in black because for the purpose of being able to see it better. So in Genesis 49, Jacob blesses his sons. And he says, he called his sons together and said, gather yourselves together that I may tell you what shall befall you. That word befall is not, befall is kind of negative. That word. Now I know it's an English word, and he may not have actually said something like that, but I just noticed that the befall is not a very positive word in the last days or in the final days. Gather yourselves together and listen, you sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. Now, I don't really want to go into Reuben, Simeon, and Levi, especially Simeon and Levi, because Moses undid this particular verse. All right. So let's go to Judah. Yehuda. This is the Jews. You are he whom your brethren shall praise. The other tribes of Israel will praise him in the end. So who are the people today who praise the Jews? Where are they located? Well, the vast majority of them are in the United States of America. Okay. Your hand shall be in the neck of your enemies. Remember, this is the last days when Judah will be repatriated back to their land. Well, that is the case today, I would say. Now, it says, your father's children shall bow down before you. Now, if you read the story of the lost son, the prodigal son, I have mentioned quite a few times, and I learned this from my dad, that the older son is Judah or Yehudah, and the younger son is Ephraim. Ephraim is where the other tribes of Israel are in Ephraim. Okay. So in the end, Judah will be greater than Ephraim, and Ephraim is going to have to come back home because he is hungry. And folks, he's hungry for a reason. People think we have full bellies now. We think we are increased with goods and have need of nothing. Let me tell you something. Hunger is going to be the key word shortly if things break down like it looks like it might. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you are gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion and as an old lion. Who dares to stir him up? Now the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come. What's Shiloh? That's the New Jerusalem. And unto him, unto Judah, shall be the gathering of the people be. So the gathering of all Israel will be to Judah, which means Judah is going to have the whole land of Israel first. Once that is established, and it's backed up in Joel 3, beginning in verse 1, then once Judah is established in their homeland, then the rest of Israel will be gathered on to Judah. Now, verse 11, binding his foal unto the vine and his ass's coat to the choice vine. This is in Zechariah 9, if you care to read it. Okay? And he washed his garments in wine. This is an analogy of blood. We read in the prophets that Jehovah's garments are going to be stained with blood. Well, that will also mean Yehoshua's garments will be stained in blood too. And we read that in Revelation, where it talks about thrusting in the sickle, the one with a golden crown on his head thrusting in the sickle. And his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes will be dark with wine, and his teeth white with milk. Now, since Judah and Joseph are the most prominent ones in this particular incident, this particular passage, we'll go straight to Joseph. In the last days, folks, what is going to befall Joseph? Ephraim. Joseph is a fruitful bough, even a fruitful bough by a well. What does a bough that's by a well do? It grows quickly and spreads out across the nations. Whose branches run over the wall? The archers have sorely grieved him and shot at him and hated him. Now, one could say this happened in the Middle Ages. And one would be correct in saying so. But remember this. This is also concerning the very last days. Could it be talking about a great war? Well, if you go back to Zechariah 9, you see that Ephraim and Yehuda will be at war against the sons of Greece. So let's go look at that for a second. Now, we just read what Joseph said about this. In verse 9, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion, shout, O daughter of Jerusalem, behold, your king comes to you. He is just having salvation, lowly and riding upon an ass, upon the colt, the foal of an ass. We just read that here in Genesis 49, did we not? Yes, we did. Verse 11, binding his foal upon the vine and his ass's colt on the choice vine. He washes his garments in wine with his clothes, the blood of. So this is right here during a time of the great war of Zechariah 9. And I believe this is the war we are staring in the face of. So this appears to be talking about the very last days. So I believe this is as well because of it. And if that's the case, we are looking at a great war. Now, I want to go and look in Strong's Concordance with this particular passage because I want to get all the meaning out of this as I can. All right? The archers now, the Baal, and let's look at it carefully because Baal is a false god, but it also means archers. Okay. All right. To be bitter. And they shot. And they hated. They bore a grudge against him. But his bow abode in strength, ever-flowing permanence. And the arms of his hands were made strong by the hand of the mighty, strong Yaakov. The break, the stone of Israel. The stone, what is that stone? That stone is in Jerusalem. What did we see? What did we see but a smoky mist around the Temple Mount, you see, on Hoshana Rabbah. Even by Elohim. So, his bow abode in strength because of Elohim, who will help you. Who will help who? Joseph. And by Shaddai, the Almighty. Who is the Almighty? The Father himself. Who will bless you with the blessings of heaven and the blessings of the deep that lies and the blessings of the breast and of the womb. Now, it says the blessing of your father has prevailed above the blessings of Abraham and Isaac. And unto the utmost bounds of the everlasting hills shall be on the head of Joseph, and to crown his head that was separate from his brethren. Now, see, folks, so here's the deal. There's going to be a great war. Who? Who is this? Who is this that is shooting at Joseph? Who is it? Right. We'll find out in Zechariah 9 who it is. Verse 13 of Zechariah 9, we see that Zion's coming king. We see that in Genesis 49. We see that the prisoners of hope, the Holocaust survivors and their children are brought back to Jerusalem. And then we see the great war. Judah is the bow. Ephraim, who is the heir of Joseph, will be the arrow. And those two will become one stick, as mentioned in the book of Ezekiel, and raised up your sons, O Zion, against your sons, O Greece, aka the Byzantines. This war may be about to break loose, and Joseph is right in the middle of it. Who are the Byzantines? The Byzantines were Greeks who occupied or who lived in Asia Minor and in Greece proper. When the Mohammedans came in and drove them out, they went to Russia. That's where they went. So today, the Byzantines are the Greek Orthodox, the Russians, the Greeks, etc. And then you see in verse 14, and Jehovah will be seen over them, and his arrow shall go forth like lightning. It will be as if you see lightning, peals of light and thunder. And this will be the time of the blowing of the trumpet. And Jehovah is going to defend Ephraim and Judah, which corresponds with what is written here in Genesis 49. How Joseph, Ephraim, is going to suffer loss in this great war, but Jehovah is going to strengthen Joseph's arm. It says, when I say he's going to suffer loss, it says they have, let's look at this word, bitter, to be bitter. So he caused bitter weeping, the enemy did, in Joseph, in Ephraim. So prepare yourselves, folks. And as I've mentioned, Ephraim, Joseph, the vast majority of them are right here in the United States. There's going to be a war. It's going to hurt. It's going to be bitter. But the arm of Jehovah is going to raise up the arms of Joseph and Judah, and the sons of Greece are going to be defeated. So, folks, as I said, I have named this video 6 Days to Midnight. Is it 6 days to midnight? I do not know. But I'm concerned that it might be. Now, please don't misunderstand me. My hope and my prayer is that Jehovah's kingdom comes quickly, because that would be the greatest blessing of all for all Israel, and ultimately for the rest of the world. So, I think I will stop right